Everywhere you look, every person you talk to, eligibility, all of these new rule changes, everything is talking about 4 years, 5 years, name, image, and likeness, portal, college athletes over high school athletes. The bigger question is not about eligibility on a 4 or 5 year time period. The bigger question is about the 40-year or the 50-year question. We're going to be talking, as this member only video is going to take a little bit deeper dive. And I really want to add some perspective. And the perspective is a lot of parents are really looking through the lens of the business that many within the baseball industry want you to look through. Travel ball, showcases, tournaments, post-grad baseball academy, IMG. We want to do these big national events, rankings, subscriptions. That's not what college is about. And it's not what the majority needs to be worried about. And while a lot of people within the framework or the industry of travel baseball, summer baseball, the ancillary, components such as showcases, uh, events such as the top 90 and the top 95, what we're losing sight of is fit. What we're losing sight of is really about the 40 or 50-year plan that you as parents, more importantly, want to try to use the platform of athletics, in this case, potentially baseball or softball, and how to use that as leverage for your student athlete to find the right fit. And oh, by the way, the whole eligibility question is Division One centric as we're talking in 2026. Has nothing really to do with the high level of academics within Division Three or the world of the boarding school, the prep school, and the powerful postgraduate year. And what I would really like to do is I would like to share with you some of the stark realities of what is truly happening within the world of college athletics. And as we're talking today, the boogeyman wants you to believe that the sky is falling. And in reality, what's actually happening is we're kind of discussing the framework of what may eventually lead to, for a very small fraction of universities and colleges, this 5 and 5, meaning the 5 years of eligibility, no redshirting. It begins after high school graduation or 19 and 6 months. All of which will be, will have to stand up through litigation. But again, let's go back to the basics. And the basics are this. First and foremost, you as parents need to understand there is a tremendous difference between prep schools and boarding schools that have been in existence for over 200 years and the accreditation that those schools have built academically, the relationships that they have forged with colleges and universities for hundreds of years, decades, that is not going to be taken lightly. They do not, in any way, shape, or form, are they on the same level as the proliferation of baseball academies that are qualifying themselves as postgraduate academies or schools. One has to take a really deep dive within the realm of IMG and these new schools that are popping up throughout the Northeast and the Southeast and even on the West Coast. And we have to avoid the trap that they are really setting for our young student athletes, which is this question. if our focus is going to be 8 to 10 hours a day on athletics and the workouts and the skill set development, and oh, by the way, 2 or 3 hours online where the world of AI can give you the information, give you the answers, and then you just write the answers down and you turn them in and you say, oh, I'm smart because I turned in the correct answers. Is that what we're really looking for as parents? Is that what we're really looking at as adults? Is this something that we should be actively promoting? Whereas the postgraduate and the prep schools, and when I say postgraduate, prep and boarding schools, they're actually 4-year schools, and some offer postgraduate years. Now, the boogeyman wants you to think, well, there's not going to be any more need for postgrad, because if you do a postgrad year, you're going to affect a year of academic eligibility. That's not accurate, because that's at the Division I level A. In B, typically a postgrad year at these really elite academic institutions, i.e. Phillips Exeter, Phillips Andover, Deerfield Academy, Avon Old Farms, Loomis Chaffee, Choate, I could rattle them off, Lawrence Academy, Brooks Academy, etc. Those schools are not to be confused with these schools that are popping up, and they're athletic centric and academic, like as a minor. Um, you know, this whole world is starting to think of D1 lens, just the D1 lens, and we're not really paying attention to the academics or the athletic combinations of the other levels, the other divisions, such as NAIA. You know, Division III is no longer what it used to be with regard to a large separation of talent. That talent has now kind of balanced itself across all levels of college athletics, not just baseball. And now, when we begin to look at the conventional 4-year Division III opportunity, there may be an opportunity to play a 5th year at the Division I. Many schools, Bates Division III, they have athletes that go on to play at Richmond or possibly Boston College. You have schools such as Salve, Regina, athletes going to Boston College or UConn. I could rattle off a myriad of schools, but my point is what you really have to understand is this does not change the bigger picture of families trying to find the right fit for their student athlete. It's really incumbent upon us as adults to understand that the sky really isn't falling. There are changes that will be occurring. Those changes may only affect a finite number of students that are athletes within the different sports: football, basketball, soccer, lacrosse, hockey, baseball, softball. But Division I may ultimately create a Premier League kind of status amongst the top 60 to 80 colleges, and they may not even be part of the NCAA, or they may be the premier division of the NCAA and have their own rules and regulations and monies and accounting and so forth. And then the other Division I schools take a more conventional college experience with regard to athletics, a combination of academics, athletics, and the culture of a college campus. We as an industry want to make the whole bigger than the parts. And the parts that we are hearing about with regard to courts and legislation and committees that are voting on, potential changes within NIL and transfer portal and years of eligibility and so forth, that is not going to be a unified stance amongst the NAIA and the lower levels of the NCAA. And so, therefore, it's not applicable to all high school athletes. So we don't have to be worrying about eligibility. It's still going to boil down to the parents and the athlete taking a step back and really asking themselves, okay, what are we looking to obtain via the college experience? what is the agenda for us, or more importantly, our student athlete with regard to college? Adults really need to say to athletes or teenagers, students, hey, this is a 40-year decision that we're making. The campus has to fit who you are. The buildings and the campus layout has to fit who you are. The coaching staff, the community, the faculty, the amenities, they all have to fit, because as a student, you're going to spend 4 or potentially 5 years on that campus in that city or town. And it's going to be a part of who you become once you graduate. And so therefore, we don't have to fall for the hysteria and the hype of, oh my gosh, no longer is postgrad going to be a thing, because it's going to affect our eligibility. For the majority, in fact, it's not. What you need to find, and I preach this, what you really need to find is, in today's world, an understanding, like a massive filter that says, okay, let's take who your student athlete is, who your student is. What is their personality like? What are their academic goals like? What is their social life like? How far away from home do they really want to be? Of course, every high school graduate dreams of the big school and the big campus and going away. But for the most part, sometimes homesickness enters the equation. The bigger school doesn't end up being the right fit. It doesn't feel right. They long to be closer to home. And obviously, the parents want to enjoy the journey with the college athlete or the college student. And so that it's always good to have a resource, a trusted resource for you as a family that you can bounce things off of. And when we start to talk about all of this, what I call static and white noise that surrounds the high school students, the guidance counselors, the peer pressure. Where are you going to college? I don't know where I'm going to college. What are you thinking of looking at a college? Well, and then from the parental perspective, you get into your peers and your friends. Well, Jimmy's going to Penn State this year, or, so and so, Sally's going to Harvard. And, there's a lot of competitive component. I call it competitive bias. And sometimes you just need that middle person that just tries to get you to be aware of some of these parts and these pieces that may seem trivial while you're dealing with the high school in the future of college. But when the college becomes a reality, oh, I didn't know that was going to be a part of this. Oh, I didn't know. Like, for instance, did you realize that over 38% of college freshmen have difficulty with their roommates during the freshman fall in college? 38%. That's inaccurate. That's a hard number. It means almost 4 out of, every 10 college students have technical difficulties with their roommate. And that causes irritation. Okay, so that's something we have to worry about. 2, the campus size is a little intimidating. It's one thing to go through it when you're in high school, because you come home to mom and dad. Wow, that new high school, when I'm a freshman, it's intimidating. The older kids have hair, facial hair, they drive cars, they smoke cigarettes, the stuff they're talking about. Woo. But you have mom and dad, and sometimes you have siblings at the table, and you were able to kind of get through it. But when you're in college, you are away. Mom and dad drop you off. You see the taillights, you wave goodbye, and oh, it's just me. I have to deal with all this. Man, the cafeteria is a long way from the dorm. Wow, the curriculum, all my classes are in a building that's about a mile away from my dorm, or all of these things, the roommates, the social interactions, it can be intimidating. So my point is let's not get fixated on this whole 5 years of eligibility. And is my son or daughter going to lose eligibility if they do a postgrad year? Well, what is the benefit of the postgrad year? The postgrad year allows the transition of a high school student both academically and athletically, it allows for the transition of independence with it's a college experience, but with guide rails and bumpers. So it allows the process to be a little bit smoother, and it allows to find the individual, meaning when a high school senior graduates and they do take advantage of a potential a post-grad year, who am I as a student? What do I like? But more importantly, what do I not like? What is tolerable and what is absolutely not tolerable? What do I like academically? And how do I prepare differently now that I'm on my own and managing my own time that I wasn't doing when I was in high school? That's the role of a postgraduate. It's not to become athletically superior, it's not to delay time. And at the end of the day, if we're all being honest, which is why I'm talking about this in a members community, even if you're starting as young as 12 or 13 years old and you have a student that aspires to play in college and you're giving consideration to the reclassification component, and a lot of parents stress over this topic, meaning they want their child to take honor classes or AP classes, but they're not quite caught up with regard to the curriculum. And some schools are talking about summer school, and some are talking about reclassifying and repeating a ninth grade year. Ho, 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 time out. We have to look at the collective whole, not a one finite area of whether it be athletic or academic. We have to think about socially. We have to think about peers. We have to think about uh, mental maturity, physical maturity. In some cases, students are very young. My youngest son was 17 when he graduated high school, tremendously ready for school. But, you know, he did not reclassify. My point to that is to say to you as parents, if I had it to do all over again from a social, mental growth perspective, he would have benefited tremendously from an additional year of high school, graduating within the more traditional window of 18 turning 19. Most parents are looking at this whole legislative slash NCAA ruling purely through the lens of the athletic, the eligibility, when in reality, it's deeper than that. So you as parents should step back and really give pause and give thought to what is the benefit of graduating high school 19 years of age as opposed to 17 or 18. Because if we're talking from an athletic lens, it's going to be beneficial being older because of physical and mental maturation. It's not, you don't want to reclass so that your student athlete can dominate at a 16U level or be ranked higher in a class or any of that, because that really is irrelevant if we're being honest. So my point to being able to do this video is let's add some common sense to this topic. Don't look at it as the majority, and the sky is not falling. The extra year is not going to affect the overall process of becoming a college student or a college student athlete. Step back, understand Division III, elite academic and athletic opportunities. NAIA, they may follow suit, but NAIA may offer your student athlete a very enjoyable experience. Don't just think about NCAA Division I as it pertains to just athletics. Think back to, okay, what does this really mean? Would my student actually be taking advantage of 5 years academically at one school? A lot of parents are talking as if they'd never heard of the portal, but a lot of athletes are at a school for 2 or 3 years and then they go to a portal to go to another school for the fourth or fifth year in some cases. Widen your lens. Find an advisor that you can trust that covers all aspects and components to the college processes not college process, and then have an individual discussion that specifically pertains to your student athlete. I hope you find value in this, and I really encourage you to share this within your family, your community, and really engage with this video and let me know, does this make sense for you as a family? Does this make sense for you as a parent? What kind of questions do you really want the answers to about the college experience as a whole? Not just athletics, not just academics, but the entirety of the college process. When you take to social media, you find that there will always be the doomers and the gloomers that are pushing a narrative behind the scenes. They want you to think about, oh, you don't want to do a post grad year anymore because that's just a waste of time. Is it really a waste of time? Is it a waste of time for your child, your student athlete? I think if you take a step back, you'll find that taking the road less traveled and allowing your student to blossom based on their time periods and growing into their strengths and allowing them to recognize their weaknesses, and then once they recognize it, begin to work on those and build those up prior to going into college, which will eliminate stress. If you like this type of content, I encourage you to do a couple of things. One, please engage with the video, meaning leave me a thumbs up. Engage, let me know what you think of this topic. And more importantly, if you have questions, please put them in the comments section or also email me at walter@coachbeede.com. Thank you for taking the time to watch the video, and I look forward to speaking with many of you during the course of the next few months when you're starting to make your decisions.